Parkinson's affecting just the elderly. It affects 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds. It shouldn't be that hard for a patient to get to see a doctor, especially someone that they need to because their life depends on it or their quality of life depends on it. It's difficult for patients to navigate the system. You get kind of broken down by that system. Maybe they already have memory problems. Maybe the caregiver is already burnt out. If we have the clinical therapy available, why does someone have to wait 8 years for it to be approved? I want to bring it all into one. Like, why not have a 4-hour visit where they get their clinical care, their physical therapy, speech, maybe a nutritionist consult, social worker care. I do want it to be kind of this combination where patients are getting 21st century care like we expect on the whim of their thoughts. They should have special tools, special spoons that are anti-tremor spoons. And these are type of things that if we had it all under one, I do think that they're gonna, revolutionize how we care for patients.
Welcome back to another episode of the Caring Neurologist, where science meets storytelling and every conversation moves us closer to better care. Today's episode is something special. We're pulling back the curtain on Dr. Thakkar's vision, a bold, patient-first blueprint that reimagines what Parkinson's care should look like. In today's episode, we'll dive deep into the gaps in our current system, explore what a true Parkinson's Center of Excellence could be, and hear directly from Dr. Thakkar about what it will take to bring this vision to life. Let's dive in. Dr. Thakkar, you've often spoken about the need for different kind of care or experience for people living with Parkinson's. What made you start thinking about building a center of excellence?
Well, most people think of centers of excellence as meant to be just a big medical center at a university or some organization that's a foundation like the Parkinson's Disease Foundation. For me, I've trained at universities and had a great experience there. We had all the resources accordingly, but there's still some limitations at university centers as to how a clinician can optimize care, how access for patients is. And doctors like me who've trained at these universities, we understand that there's like loopholes. It's difficult for patients to navigate the system to get in. And I think it's quite unfair for the advanced treatments in the past to only have been at the university center, because as time goes on, multidisciplinary approach can be seen in the private practice. And that's what I want to try to accomplish, what I'm able to do now, where we see patients, care for patients, but build in the whole cutting edge research and have that team-based approach, integrating with also neurologists like me, other movement specialists, making sure that we have our hubs and spokes with primary care doctors, therapists, physical therapists that are in our community, speech therapists, occupational. But I want to bring it all into one. And, it's always been in that university setting where a patient may go, but it is hard for patients to get to a university. There is also a limited access based on how many centers have a Parkinson's specialist. But as more and more of us have trained, we're a lot in the community, but it's been hard for neurologists who only focus on Parkinson's to just do that. I was blessed to come to a hospital system that saw that need, and then I've been able to do that in private practice myself.
So would you say that what is missing in how most patients experience care today has to do with access, the fragmentation of care as well, or like how to coordinate that holistic or integrative vision that you have?
Yeah. So, when a clinician like myself, I want to have things done a certain way. I want to be able to direct care, patients call, we want to get them in soon. We don't want to have them wait months. And now the way that healthcare is going, to see a subspecialist like someone like myself who's a movement disorder trained, whether it's Parkinson's, whether Huntington's disease, even rare disorders, cervical dystonia, it could take 5-6 months to get into a university clinic or even subspecialists like myself. So I do feel that it's hard for patients to schedule appointments. Their access is based now on their insurance, and insurances make it fragmented. There may be patients who are Medicare, but they have what's called Medicare Advantage plans, and they can only see certain doctors in a restricted area. And with those Advantage plans, there's authorizations that are needed to specifically see a doctor, and you can't see that doctor unless they're in that network. And then it just becomes really hard for that coordination to happen. So we are seeing, as time goes on, it's more confusing for patients to know which insurance is appropriate. And then they're part of an insurance, maybe doctors retire. We're seeing that it's not easy for them to navigate that aspect. So I do think that there's a lack of coordination. I wish all the electronic health records could work together, but the cost of medicine is getting high, even for a primary care doctor to be independent. They have to join now big hospital systems. For me in private practice, there's a lot that it takes to stay afloat. And so that's why it's also one of those things that when we succumb to a big hospital system, university, and we don't get to keep our individual kind of care and goals that we want for patients. Because again, I think we've seen that when you're working for yourself, you want to work harder. And I think when I have seen other hospital systems, you kind of come in and you want to work just 9 to 5, and you get kind of broken down by that system. So I think it's a combination of fragmentation for patient care. It's also a fatigue state for us as doctors, because we keep trying to build and then we get told that we can't build upon the care that we want to provide.
So if I understand it correctly, do people with movement disorders, do they need to see different specialists? Is it like diabetics, for example?
Yeah, so ends up being like, let's just say for your diabetic, you may see your endocrinologist, and the endocrinologist is again predominantly focusing on diabetes, but then you may need to see a nutritionist, or you may need to see a podiatrist because of nerve damage in the foot. Diabetic issues may again not just be about medications, but then how do you need to go to physical therapy. So same thing works in movement disorders. In Parkinson's, for instance, we need to have not only me as a neurologist focusing on medical management, but we want to have an opportunity for clinical research. We do actually depend on nutritionists to make sure that patients have good diet. We need to see a sleep specialist for our patients that have sleep apnea associated with Parkinson's. There is a lot that goes on with motor control that a physical therapist needs to be involved with, or patient's speech gets affected in neurological disease where they're maybe having softer speech or not having a clear speech, and maybe they develop swallowing issues. So there are many subspecialists, not just doctors, but again, therapists, social workers, and we need to have that combination kind of in a design form where it's easy to access, and hopefully, again, maybe all under one roof.
So if you could redesign the experience of a newly diagnosed Parkinson's patient from the ground up, what would that journey look like?
Yeah, it's a good segue. So ease and access, number one, I would say first I would suggest like a fairness in access, where patients have insurance without limitations. Neurological diseases that are degenerative, they shouldn't require authorizations. There shouldn't be a limitation on a patient seeking second opinion or getting numerous physical therapy requests, and if physical therapy is helping them, they shouldn't have to be told like, oh, you've reached your quota. Who's to tell someone that with Parkinson's disease or ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, multiple sclerosis, or Alzheimer's that you need to get an approval to see a fellowship trained subspecialist? Like, that's not fair. Like, why do you have to wait? And time is of the essence for a lot of individuals. So I think that in this day and age when, everything's on demand, if you want certain food, you can, get your phone and you can say, hey, I want to take this order and it's delivered. It shouldn't be that hard for a patient to get to see a doctor, especially someone that they need to because their life depends on it or their quality of life depends on it. And we need to have less limitations and restrictions. So patients should have the clarity as to which neurologist they should see. They should be aware of what that center focuses on, how it's comprehensive, does it offer clinical research, are these doctors keeping up to speed? And so there should be some transparency as well. And again, like at our center, we offer the basics from diagnosis to clinical care, the research access. Now we're offering, higher level research where we have, more than 8 clinical trials and hopefully more than that as the next year develops, comes around the corner. But we have surgical options. And these are things that I want to go past the basics of a patient coming in and just coming in for a medicine. We want to make sure that it's collaborative. I want to have rehab access in my office. I want to have a speech therapist in my office. We shouldn't have patients necessarily having to go to numerous visits, whether like they're coming in one city and then they have to drive to another place, or, we have patients that may come from another state. Like, why not have a 4-hour visit where they get their clinical care, their physical therapy, speech, maybe a nutritionist consult, social worker care? We should all have it under one hub, and that's what I'm hoping to do.
So if you can share like exactly how you imagine this uh, Parkinson's Center of Excellence, how does it look like exactly? Like, would it be clinical? Well, you've mentioned that you want different areas involved, but I would like to see how how that looks like for you.
Yeah, a key characteristics for me as some center of excellence, or a center where we have like my team involved, it should be again without any discrimination. So I would love for in the future where patients, even if they don't have any insurance, they should be able to come knock on our door. They should be able to access at any time of the day and say, hey, I want to be seen. And we should have access for a patient to be seen, whether it's by me as a clinician, having, I need extra support with another staff, and we already have physician assistants, but we need more of us who are Parkinson's trained. And that center should have access where, again, you can call and then maybe you can get in that same day, or, within that week. But we need to like have more staffing. I think that's going to be a big part. So as I said, access, we're going to need more rooms, but we need patients to come in where they feel like they're getting the most of their time. So when they do come in, maybe they're scheduled to get rehab in the morning, and then they're coming in to get speech therapy right after that. And then maybe they need to see um, like get swallow therapy, or, get evaluated. Can they swallow? So could they get imaging done that same moment that they're down in our clinic? If we need access for an MRI or CT scan, can that all be done in that same clinic visit? That would be ideal. Then we can make not only diagnoses right away, but then we're leaving patients with not necessary gaps and weeks or months to get other imaging or getting rehab. So a lot of our perspectives that we talk about in healthcare is multidisciplinary care team, and we should have that disciplination of team approach. We should be able to say, look, you have this clinical issue. We have clinical research here. You're already on medicines. They're not working for you. Or, these are the basics. Let's see a nutritionist. Let's see a social worker, or family members are having problems caring for someone with ALS or Parkinson's disease, and they need, home support, nursing. So if I had that social worker already there to already help implement some home health agency, then we get things going. We also need counseling. And I think having a psychologist as part of the team would be very useful. Like I said, I want it to be all under one roof. And it's hard to do in private practice. It's hard to do unless you're in a big institution. And it's also, again, limitations for patients, because even in a big institution, they don't have as much access to navigate through. They have to wait, quite some time to see all these individual um, uh, team members. And that's why, again, if we could have a center where everyone's already there, then we can have much more access for patients.
And I imagine that the family, like you mentioned before, needs a lot of support as well, right? And needs a lot of understanding or of what their family member with the movement disorder is going through. So do you imagine that to be a part of it also? Like maybe some guidance for the family, training, how do you care better for your loved one?
Yeah, and,
Um,
and I'm glad that you're asking questions about movement disorders, because again, I gravitate so quickly to Parkinson's, but as a movement disorder specialist, I see Huntington's disease, which really affects not only the patient but the family. It's a disease that is, affecting physical, emotional, and cognitive. So when patients come in with their care partner, with their loved one, with their children, whoever it may be, they're burnt out too. They're tired. They want to get the best for their loved one. And, patients want the best for themselves. So if we can have, again, some educator there as well. Again, sometimes it could be the social worker, sometimes it could be a nurse, maybe it could be my physician assistant, maybe it's just me also just giving time and having the appropriate handouts and talking about, prognosis, whatever that may be. But we would need multiple ways of communicating this to patients. But I think that's what is essential, is that there should be some basic foundational knowledge that should be provided. And I'm hoping that, again, what we are already doing with these podcasts is providing that foundation as well. But sometimes people need to hear it right then and there.
Absolutely. I'm sure a lot of people are learning a lot just from listening to these podcasts. And do you imagine any sort of technology or involved?
So, as far as technology goes, I mean, number one, the technology as far as what we're doing in movement disorders, for instance, we're trying to use AI from a basics of even taking notes for us. I think that's going to be something that I want to utilize. And if I can then not spend the time just on the computer and dictating, that would be one unique aspect of it. The other aspect of technology in our world will be, wearables for patients. Can patients have certain tools? There's, again, iWatches that already help in, noticing if a patient's walking unsteady, if they've fallen, and can we utilize that information real time? Hopefully there's also digital, what we call biomarkers. There's other such tools that patients are working on in the Parkinson's world. Is something called PKG and kinesia. And these are, again, specialized sensors that are being utilized to quantify movement, track movement, and then to let us know also how people are doing. Hopefully technology will also bring like how patients are sleeping, and they can track certain aspects that are important for neural health. So we see that a lot of patients with Parkinson's have REM sleep disturbances. So if there's a way of tracking how they're sleeping, if they're having apnea, then that can explain why they're fatigued or cognitively having issues. So there are those technology available, and there's new incentives for patients to get on these therapies for clinical research. And then also it can help find out what patients are going through at home, because, we don't get that information when they come in the clinic of like what's happened over the last week or 2 weeks or 3 months. And so that's what I think technology will bring. It can make it easier for us as well. Like I said, from dictating notes and then maybe collecting data so then we can utilize that to then understand where our gaps are with patient care.
And you mentioned you can use that data for clinical trials.
I mean, right now there's clinical trials for different sensors that exist. And, what the future looks like for research also is going to be when you're gathering all this data about patients and how they're doing with certain medicines and why there's maybe issues, can data be gathered as far as, objective measures? Then, because maybe we're looking at something uh, that's totally wrong, like we were talking about, for instance, just thinking about tremor, and tremor may be just one aspect of the disease, but we're not talking about their speed of walking, and we're not looking at maybe eye movements. So if there's ways, I know that the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, they're doing a lot with Facebook with their Meta glasses, right? And there's all these AI information, but can we use even that type of information to track maybe our eye movements, so that are we seeing that the symptoms of a patient is getting worse because their meds are going low and their eye movements aren't working well? Like there's got to be some unique things. And I think we got to use technology um, now, as opposed to just for, gimmicks and toys and, sending, text messages. Can we utilize this even further? I was working a long time ago with Google, and with Google, they had this special uh, Project X, Google X team, and they had something called Google Glasses. and the Google Glass technology was kind of what's existing right now with the Meta glasses. And it would send information, or you could see through the glass and have augmented reality. And I was hoping that I could work with them to show where patients should step and show footprints on the floor, so that patients with Parkinson's who freeze and get stuck with walking, maybe they can get unstuck or unfrozen, right? So I'm hoping this is the type of technology we need for research and patient care right now.
So these wearables can actually go into the minute details that will help a patient um, manage better their disease, or maybe even slow,
Coordinate better.
w-
Yeah.
yeah, slow it down. Is that
Well, I wouldn't say we can slow it down yet, but could we, in the future, like even have certain therapies where, maybe you swallow a pill and you know what the GI system is dealing with at that moment, right? Could we have cameras to say, okay, we don't, we're backed up, we're constipated. Is there a certain sensors in the GI system that say, hey, you know what, maybe this is not the best time to take a medicine? Is there ways of looking at enzymes in our GI system? Is there ways of getting real-time data that say, you know what, we had too much lactose and we're going to have problems with our stomach and we're bloated. So is it the right time to take a pill? I think these are unique things that the future will hold. And the ways of sensors for our vestibular glands and our balance centers to make us understand, like, hey, we're about to fall, we're feeling dizzy, we turn too quickly, and there should be certain cues and vibration on our phone, or wherever it may be in our shoes, that tell us, hey, you know what, you're about to fall. You look unsteady, or if someone's frozen, and they are stuck on their feet. And like Parkinson's patients, they can't take a big step. Sometimes there's these shoes that exist right now, but it's such a expensive shoe. I think it's in Europe right now, where they vibrate to get the foot to move. Well, why can't we have this technology now? Or why can't we have philanthropy get access for patients now that we could, roll this out already?
And on that note, how do you think that a dedicated research unit inside the center will accelerate innovation?
Well, I'm hoping that when we have such a research coordinated team, then it's easier for, again, a patient, that I can say, you're having this problem and we have this clinical trial for you, or we have this option for you that we don't have FDA approval yet and there's no other existing therapies. Can we utilize this type of research entity? So I'm hoping that it's not just going to be medications as a clinical therapy. I'm hoping that we could get wearables, or we can get some AI um, kind of direction for patients to get them to improve. And I'm hoping that we, as a medical institution, not just depend on, treating symptoms, but can we help re-coordinate better, right? Can we improve quality of life for patients? Sometimes patients have a tough time with remembering when to take their pills. And sure, they can put an alarm, but maybe with AI, there's certain things that the phone or the glasses that they have on them could already set everything up for them, right? So I think these are things that patients get burnt out with. Maybe they already have memory problems. Maybe the caregiver is already burnt out. And if we have clinical coordinators and a research unit, then we can really follow patients closer. I've learned through my clinical trials already, we have some clinical coordinators that come with us. They allow for close follow-ups of patients once they're in a study. And that access for patients lets us kind of take care of them a lot sooner, a lot easier. We know what's going on, and we get a lot of real-time data where they may not, for me, like, get into my clinic, but at least they're seeing the coordinator, and then I know what's going on. I get a pulse of what they're going through.
So do you envision the center becoming a trial site or a data hub for pharma and academic collaborators?
I don't know what I want and what I expect, to be honest with you. But I do want it to be a unique world where um, I get to collaborate with industry, collaborate with innovative tech companies. I do want it to be kind of this combination where patients are getting 21st century care like we expect, right? Like, I mean, if I can um, speak into my watch, right, and I can say, set a timer, or if I want to say, hey, you know, make a calendar request for this reservation. I mean, this is what patients should be able to do on the whim of their thoughts, right? So we want to be able to, again, have patients have access for healthcare that that they should get. Number one, they should be able to get information about what the newest technology is, what the newest therapies are existing, what clinical trials are available. And so if I have this center already that's existing, then I should be able to direct them through and navigate through. But it's not really just about that research entity. I mean, I want patients to get the education. I want them to get the proper nutrition. I want them to get the best speech therapy and physical therapy. So we can use technology, whether it's for speech and language, like they should have special microphones. They should have special tools to help them eat and use special spoons that are anti-tremor spoons. And these are type of things that if we had it all under one, then also industry can come to our clinic. They can give us, uh, these tremor spoons, for patients to access, or we should be able to have patients get the unique shoes that have the vibrations in there so they can walk better. I want it to be a place, hopefully, where we're not limited by an approval of the FDA or an insurance, hopefully even prosthetics and things like that. We should have easy access for patients all in one.
Can you use technology that people use on, like, ordinary technology that people use on a daily basis for whatever, but can you find a specific focus to help people with Parkinson's
Yeah. So
that
right
they
now,
can benefit?
so what we do in the clinic is, for instance, some of our patients, they're pretty savvy, and on their phones, they already have downloaded apps for sleep. And so they're like, hey, I have this sleep app, and, this is what I've noticed. And I'm like, okay, well, let me tell me more about it. And so I'll look at their phone, and I'm looking through their app for sleep, and they can tell me again how many hours they got. It tells me, did they get into REM sleep? And so there's a lot of unique tools that do exist. One of my patients was telling me that he's at a high risk for falling, and he has a watch, an Apple Watch actually, and it gave him some cues like, "Hey, something's wrong, something's not right with you, and you're at a high risk for falling." So it's interesting is that he was developing a severe cold, and before the cold was going to become and manifest for, like, just like the typical symptoms of aches and body aches and, fever, his Parkinson's symptoms were getting worse because as his body's fighting this infection, he's actually feeling uncoordinated. He's not thinking as well. When you get a cold, you just don't feel right. You get stuffy head. Well, with Parkinson's patients and other neurological conditions, it really magnifies their symptoms. So he was getting this warning that, hey, I'm not doing well. I could be at risk of falling. And it was coincidentally that he was coming to see us. And I'm like, I think something's up. So we got blood tests, we got a urine analysis. And it wasn't until 2 days later, he actually ended up having a cold. And he actually even had a mild urinary tract infection that we were able to jump on ahead of time. So it's unique that the technology does exist. There are things we can use. I think there's so much more out there. For instance, like there's these Aura rings, right? This is not an Aura ring. This is just my normal wedding ring. But there are Aura rings out there. And on our previous podcast, we talked about how we can use technology like that to check heart rate, but, oxygen levels. And so there's these rings that can help with sleep. And I do think that with more and more of this AI driven technology that exists, we're going to have better ways of assessing our health.
And do you see technology advancing hugely in the near future in a way that it can really shift how care is being offered or how it's operating in the moment?
Yeah. The problem is medicine is very slow. It goes at a snail's pace. There are medicines that have been approved here in the United States that just recently got approved, but they were in Europe like 10 years ago. And it's so if there's technology, how does it get pushed faster into everyday world that clinicians like myself can use for patients? I mean, that's what we're really hoping for. It just takes forever from a safety perspective. And I get it because there is concerns about people hacking into, technology and getting patient information. And, there is a lot of sensitivity of information that exists that no one else needs to have. So there's a lot of privacy circumstances that need to be accounted for. But this is going to be the future. I mean, technology will be a key driver in how we, deliver care. I think it's also going to simplify care for a lot of people. It can also be in the beginning very daunting of a task to understand all the data points and everything that's going. But I think the data that we can get from patients with all the tools could also then drive research for industry, whether it's through pharma, whether it's through tech companies. We're getting a lot of information from our deep brain stimulators already, and patients come in. We're getting technological information that about their brain waves, and that brainwave information we are now utilizing to send signals to real time to control their symptoms. So this is where technology has gotten, that it is helping drive best care, but there's a lot of gaps still that exist, and I do think that there's going to be some future changes that are going to, I think, revolutionize how we care for patients, whether it's the GI system, whether it's neurological system, whether it's the heart. I do believe in that.
So we've touched on a few different things now, from technology, how the center of excellence would look like. Now I'd just like to recap a little bit about how the structure would be if you walk in. You would have access to a nutritionist, mental health specialist, sleep
Sleep
specialist.
doctor, sleep access, yeah. And that's the other thing is, let's say you come into my clinic and we're looking at, you know, we have access for a lot of things for patients, right? But there's something missing. Well, can't we just have them right now, right then and there, log on a televisit to a sleep specialist? Like maybe the sleep specialist isn't there, but can't we use telemedicine to get them in right then and there with someone? And that, does that person have to be, you know, in their insurance? Does it have to be someone that's in the city? Does it have to be a doctor in that state? I mean, this is the other thing. We shouldn't be limited by how we've conventionally done healthcare. Like if someone's coming to see me, yet we can get like 6 out of 7 multidisciplinary care, right? We can get the speech therapist, we can get the physical therapist, we have the mental health specialist, the psychologist, but we want to do now a sleep consult, but the sleep doctor, you know, is busy. Well, why can't I access a sleep doctor in another state or in another country and then get that taken care of right then and there? I mean, this is what, again, technology. We haven't even talked about telehealth. And actually, we're in the last day of September 2025, and this is the last day of telehealth that will be reimbursed by our government. And October 1st is going to be unable to do telehealth visits. Now, that may change. There may be some other changes which may occur, and they've extended out numerous times this year. But I think it should be acknowledged that telehealth should be available for patients, especially in movement disorders when they can't walk, they can't get to the clinic. I need to know how a patient did with medicines. They don't want to come back and see us to walk in the clinic to say, okay, they're doing fine or they're not doing fine. Like they want to have quick access, and a phone call doesn't do enough because I can't see them. And I would like to know if their tremor is less. I want to see how they're walking. So telehealth should be unlimited as well. And it should be also reimbursed. I mean, our time that we spend with patients uh, is not being reimbursed properly either.
I'm glad you mentioned this because it is essential for people to have access to medicine at all times. And like you said, it's not always possible or easy to go in physically. And there might not even be a need to go in because you can get faster treatment just by doing
The telehealth component.
telehealth. What kind of people or organizations do you hope will come alongside on this mission?
Yeah, I'd say that the goal would be that not only are patients going to come to see us because they understand that we have um, like the best quality of care and we have all the kind of the multidisciplinary approach, but I'm hoping that we can attract top talent, whether it comes from medical students, clinical researchers, statisticians. We need to get donors as well for our center. And I'm thinking that, when people can come to our clinic, they feel like, they're coming to a place where, the president would be seen, like I don't want it to be that, they're coming in and they're thinking that this is just some regular clinic. No, each person to their own should be getting the best quality of care. I kind of envision it like Mayo Clinic in a way where you can come spend 4 hours of your day. Maybe people come from out of state, but they're coming in and they're investing their time, and we are diving into different things. People come to see them to make sure that they're not leaving without any unanswered questions. That they've gotten the quality that they need for understanding what their home exercise routine needs to be. What are the proper speech therapy exercises? Why are they falling? Do they need to see an ENT specialist right then and there? Can we get vestibular therapy right then and there? So this isn't going to work just by me having a vision. Like I'm going to need help, support. I need more space. And I'm hoping that we can collaborate with, other doctors and hopefully not be limited by insurance for patients. I would love for like to be endowed in a way that patients come, and we have, grant access for patients. We have funding for them. We have funding for our staff so that we can hire all of these, key elements to the clinic.
And I'm sure that's the way it will be because this is super needed, a place where you can just go and you know that every aspect of what you need, all the care that you need will be taken care of. Didn't
Yeah.
mean to be redundant, but yeah, that you will be looked after in every possible way. So, what are the first one, two steps you're already taking to bring this center of excellence to life?
Yeah, we've been partnering with a research trial group, a research center, and this Parkinson's Research Center actually is based out in Florida, and with a very prominent neurologist, Dr. Stuart Isaacson, and he set up three other satellite clinics, one in New York, one in San Francisco, and then we're the fourth site here in Orange County. And what we have right now is 7 clinical trials, and I wouldn't have access if it wasn't for someone like him, who has already made us kind of the satellite, like kind of spoken hub center. And we have access already right now for patients to do phase 2, phase 3, and even phase 4 studies. Hopefully in 6 months to 12 months, we'll approach 12 to 15 studies for patients with Parkinson's and other movement disorders. And we're hoping that, that's not only just the first step, the second step is going to be how we incorporate a larger clinic. And then hopefully that we can recruit more talent. Again, I want to have a social worker in my clinic space. I want to have a full-time educator for patients. And I'm hoping to have space where even in the future, we have a physical therapist on demand ready to work with the patient. Especially a lot of our patients, when the meds aren't working, they need to get kind of stimulated move. And so if we can even have that type of care where a patient can like, get into PT right then and there, all of a sudden they don't feel like they're dependent on the pills. But this will also help them not to, uh, you know, have to take an extra day out of their week to go for physical therapy. So we want to already have that access for them.
So, it's important to have good facilities also, right? I'm imagining some equipment and a gym or what?
Yeah, I mean, I want to have the tools there already. This is gonna be, like hopefully a type of center where maybe the first floor is that gym for a patient. Maybe there's a imaging center already there. I mean, I know this will probably cost millions of dollars to do, but I do believe that there's going to be philanthropy and hope, where again, that's driving the more individualized care. See, there's a lot of philanthropy that goes to Michael J. Fox Foundation, to the Parkinson centers. You see it for cancer research. But why does it have to be only that university center or a certain foundation? Why can't we look into these private practices that have the same goals, the same altruistic benefits for patient? And I think that we should be able to have that very individualized for patient care.
Well, we have a lot of listeners. I'm sure we'll reach the right person, the right people. Ignite some imagination in our listeners, some hearts, some interest.
Yeah, I did have a patient who I did a telehealth for, visit. He is in, Idaho, and a very sweet guy, and he said he listened to the 12th episode of the podcast, and he said, "I'd love to participate and help and contribute to more education, more podcasts." And, he was very sweet, and he said, I know it takes time and money to do these podcasts, and just his email, just him saying, "How can I contribute? How can I help?" I mean, it meant a lot, and I think these are the types of things that we're touching people because people understand that we care, and there's an avenue that there are a lot of people who are suffering, and let me tell you what very interesting thing Ibra, is. I see some patients who were on TV, who are celebrities, and they no longer can work. And they themselves also don't have enough money for insurance. I have some patients who, these are celebrities who like have been my idols, and they've come to see us, and they're on covered California insurance, and they have limited access. So it affects everybody. It really does. This is not just, a disease of illness that we may see of Parkinson's affecting just the elderly. It affects 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds. We see patients, again, like I said, who are in their 50s and 60s who, when I was a young kid, I was watching them on TV. And today, of all things, my physician assistant and I, we saw a patient who is pregnant, and she's 32 years old, sorry, 35 years old. And she had young onset Parkinson's. And I talked to her about her in a previous episode that, she was diagnosed in her late teens, and she had symptoms when she was like 14. And so it's a tough disease, and we want to have access for patients, um, in all walks of life.
And I'm sure you've mentioned this in other episodes, but is there, with this type of care, this type of multidisciplinary care, is there a way to, you said you can't slow the progression, but how can it better the quality of life for people? Or how
Yeah.
does it work?
Well, again, I think that the research we're working on may be able to make a change, and maybe we are seeing things that in the clinical research that may slow down the disease. We are actually having clinical trials that are utilized to go above and beyond symptom control. And so some of the clinical research we are doing is going to be affecting abnormal proteins that are spreading throughout the system that affect the brain and the nerves. And if we can slow down those progression, then maybe we can slow down the disease state itself, maybe modify the disease. So there are potentials right now. There's a phase 2 and a phase 3 study for stem cells that we're considering to be part of. And I know other centers are doing that as well. So we are hoping that there's going to be some disease modifying agents.
Beautiful. And so that with integrative care, I think that I see a very hopeful future for patients with movement disorders. And Dr. Takar, we're approaching the end of this episode, but hopefully we get to talk a lot more about this vision, because at least I really feel it in my heart, and I am very hopeful, and I know that this can be a reality in the very near future, and I certainly hope that it is. Um, and for all of our listeners, whether they're patients, physicians, or potential funders, how can they follow this journey or get involved?
Yeah, whether you're a patient, get involved with clinical trials, be your own advocate. I think that's a very important thing. Talk to your doctor about um, where is research, where are trials going on in your neighborhood. Spread the knowledge, get involved with support groups as well, and I think that's key if you're a physician yourself, and keep up to date, be at the forefront of patient care, help bridge that gap between research and one's own practice. I think it's also extremely important that in the world of medicine, we're limited as clinicians, and we can't refer patients to higher level care quickly. I think there needs to be better collaborative systems. Be advocates for the patients if they are, needing to see someone out of the typical insurance or hospital organization. And I think that would be huge for, that, you know, content where maybe again, my center, we don't have clinical trials right now for stem cells, but I still will refer to the university that's close by. I think we need to get our ego out of it. And then again, hopefully there's potential funders and philanthropy that will be looking to advance the basic science and clinical application that exists. And I think that, funders are going to play a pivotal role in how medicine is actually provided. There's a lot of limitations in how government care is, how much patients have access with Medicare and these advantage programs. Again, I hope that we can provide free care, hopefully advanced care. And for me, it's not about necessarily having, um, time for just research. I want time invested in the patient. And that's what I'm hoping for. I have like three of the most amazing physician assistants that I work with. They are phenomenal. I want to give a shout out to Cheryl, Catherine, and Jisoo. They are amazing. And, how can I keep doing what I do if I don't have them? And so I'm hoping for support for their growth. I want them to go to, you know, different congresses and conferences to be better. And then also, they should be helping lead the research opportunities and trials for patients as well. So I'm hoping that with funding, we can, provide free care and access for patients who don't have it, maybe free medicines as well. And there's unique tools that are out there. The Mark Zuckerbergs of the world can lend us a few meta glasses. That would be great too.
You've said it, Dr. Takar. It's out in the world now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mark, you heard me.
yeah. If you're listening, this is it.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything that you would want to leave us with before we close off
No,
this?
thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today about like my vision and the goal. And I'm sure there's more that I want to add to it. It's the key thing is comprehensive care, and we get there without being limited by the current constraints that exist in medicine. I think that's what the goal should be.
And I think that you mentioned something that really stuck. How can you balance the part? How can you balance having the time and the resources for research, but not forget about what's the most important also, which is caring for people that need it right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't wanna wait, and we don't want people to have to wait months to get in and wait years to get the cure. So one of the things I wanna, preface is why I've been focusing now much more than ever on clinical research is if we have the clinical therapy available, why does someone have to wait 8 years for it to be approved? So I'm hoping that it takes the right acceleration of research. Again, accounting for safety. Okay. All things considered, safety is an important part of it. So, but we want to get those trials, those medicines, the therapies out and available sooner than later.
Dr. Takar, thank you for sharing such a personal and visionary look at what's possible when we stop settling for fragmented care and start building for the future. For those listening, whether you're a patient, a caregiver, a fellow clinician, or even a potential research or philanthropic partner, we hope this episode has sparked your imagination because real change starts with a bold idea and the courage to build it. If you'd like to learn more, get involved, or simply follow this journey, you can visit thecaringneurologist.com. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone who believes in progress.